I created a shitstorm in the Guild Wars 2 community. Just so you know that this the new content is just not great. I think people are positive about VOE. I think overall it is a positive expansion, but it's like at any new expansion release, the amount of content is kind of low. That is just, I guess there's just not much to do. Which, by the way, I'm totally fine with. You know, just keep talking about the benchmark meta. I'm totally fine with it. I don't mind grinding a few videos. But anyway, Silhouette Gaming, who dropped by one of my streams at some point and welcomed me. And I like Silhouette Gaming again. I watched a few of his videos. Funny enough, when he dropped in, I actually didn't recognize his name. I'm just really bad with names. Okay, but then I was like, dude, that name sounds so familiar, right? And then I went, it's like, oh, I watched a bunch of his videos already. Okay, so it's like that was awkward of me. But anyway, so he reacted to me reacting. Well, no, so he reacted to my video. He talks about me also reacting to Mighty Teapot. So I think he goes about over multiple videos. I don't know if he saw the conversation I had with Mighty Teapot. It's like an hour long, an hour and 10 minutes, I think it was, conversation. But let's see what he has to say. I watched up to 2 minutes, so I know where it starts, but I don't know anything on that. So I watched the intro, okay? And I did respond probably to somebody maybe. I was responding to this, but I was like, you know what? I already said it multiple times, so it's like I'm not going to start this again.
This video isn't about how bad the benchmarks are. They are bad. Everybody knows they're bad. If you don't think they're bad, I'm sorry, but you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
That hurt.
Okay, the reason I'm saying they're bad is because they don't represent the content, okay? Having the tool is fine, okay? But the tool is flawed because it doesn't represent the game. Unlike games like World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV, where you can keep a massive amount of uptime on the bosses, therefore you do get to go through your rotation more so than more so than Guild Wars 2, and it's not even close, okay? Bosses disappear, that's fine. Something else appears for you to attack. In Guild Wars 2, there's many times where bosses disappear and you got nothing to do, or they have a CC break bar, and you as a DPS don't have, you're not doing damage, okay? There's so many phases where go do something that has nothing to do with the boss. I don't think that's an inherent problem. I think that's a problem with how the benchmarks represent the game. That's it. Okay, the tool is inadequate. I don't think there can be a better tool because I don't think you can make a better tool. But I am stating the obvious, as somebody here said, right? This thing was started by someone who thinks he's the only one to understand mechanics. No, I did state the obvious, and that is also why in the first video I didn't even go into mechanics. Into the benchmarks. It was like a statement in the first minute or two that benchmarks are bad in Guild Wars 2 because they don't represent the game. I didn't say it that way, sure. But then the whole rest of the video is in the context of people making these YouTube guides about builds, and they're using the benchmark to prove that this build does 36k. That's where I had the problem. I don't even care about the Snowcrow stuff at this point. Okay? I'm only saying that people are using benchmarks, making a build that would do high or high-ish damage on a benchmark for low amounts of effort is misleading because this doesn't translate to any real content. And then if you go into that content expecting to see a certain number, you're not going to see it. And that is disappointing, as well as wasting a whole lot of resources if you're a brand new player. Which is, again, a main point in my video. But anyways.
And I think that flicked this switch in me where I was like, okay, you, watch this.
So this discussion has been infiltrating the Guild Wars 2 space over the last couple of days because there was a creator by the name of Framenthor that made a video decrying the idea of benchmarks or their usefulness. And while I watched the original video titled "Benchmarks Are Bullshit," where he basically rants about
the title is 50% rage bait, 50% true, but the video isn't really about it. It uses an aspect of it, sure, but hey, that's YouTube. I'm sorry. I don't like doing rage bait videos or like rage bait titles or like what do you call them, clickbaits. I don't like doing them. This is like one out of like, I can't remember the last time I did anything similar to a clickbait.
About a couple of different things. People asked about my thoughts on it. The thing is, he displays his point of view with enough confidence that most people don't really know if he's rage baiting or if he's just missing the point or what. Well, as a creator that rage baited their way to ArenaNet partnership, I thought I should weigh in on this conversation. I see other content creators farming this discussion and farming the content.
Yo, who else is farming this? I only knew Mighty Teapot. Bro, I'm down, dude. Like, farm it up. I wanna give me more content to react to see what the point of views are. I don't care.
And Thor reacted to Teapot reacting to his content.
Birmingham is a
I don't know who this is. Did he react to me? What is this? Because it shows as if I'm reacting to him, but I don't know what I'm watching. I don't know. This looks like this is definitely the Teapot thing. So I guess he put this in because this is the Teapot legendary giveaway hell, right?
shithole.
So I feel like it's my time to cash in on the discussion and give a little bit of clarity on what I think the original creator was intending to talk about. First and foremost, he is mostly correct in his statements, but we'll be breaking it down and going.
All I need to know. Get fucked.
Over it. I think the statement.
This is approximately where I up to here I previewed, so I knew he was gonna say that.
That most people agree with, that he is most accurate on, is that benchmark numbers don't always accurately reflect the numbers that you will see in a live encounter. Now from here, he kind of loses the plot and he gets sidetracked and goes off topic and starts talking.
It was a rant. It was a random Wednesday rant, okay? I'm not saying that there's like a regular random Wednesday rant, but it's like I was just ranting while playing the game, so my thoughts were like kind of like all over the place. It wasn't like anything insane. Like it's not like I planned out the video or anything like that. I was just playing and I was like, fuck, I just want to talk about this, and I just went at it. Like it wasn't. There's very little editing. There's like no script. It's just like I'm talking about what bothers me.
Talking about the differences between melee and ranged builds and Condi damage builds and Condi ramp up.
That's later
so
on,
and
though.
so on,
But, yeah.
which really they are things that exist and they do affect your DPS output on an encounter. But I'm going to break these concepts down in a way that makes sense because despite popular belief, I actually do know what I'm talking about. So let's get started with what benchmarks actually are. Defining the term. The benchmark of a particular build is a demonstration of not only the maximum output of a build, but also how to perform the rotation of a build in a vacuum, in an ideal scenario. Yes. And this is the maximum that this build or rotation can provide for everything from maximum boons to rotation to things like strafing the target or whatever. And that's it. So are benchmarks bullshit? No. Benchmarks are a point on a graph, one piece of data that can be useful in helping the player determine if a build is worth playing or not. Many years ago, there was no training golem room. There were no perma buffs, and the benchmark was killing the champion risen giant in ore in the time.
Now, to be fair, I didn't know about the benchmark not existing, and apparently this also offended a lot of people because the community really like tried to convince Guild Wars 2 to add something like this. So me complaining about it is hitting a nerve at like people who've been playing for a long time. It just hit a nerve because it's like, well, we didn't even have this, and when this was introduced, it was amazing and it was like such a like a big thank you to Guild Wars 2. Yeah, like okay, it was a massive appreciation route. That's cool, okay, but that's an emotional argument to my point. Okay, I understand you're upset, but the golem needs more options. I don't know what to tell you. The golem needs more options. He needs to be able to do certain mechanics, not just run around in a circle or stand there. Like, he needs to be able to do stuff. Like, make you dodge because he's going to perform CCs, right? Just have an option, you know, like a third console that's like, random fucking, he will knock you down or something like that. Like, I don't know, like something like this, you know?
Time it took you from start to finish to kill that mob was what you had to work with. That was the only data that was available to you. And then Arc DPS came along, Raining Golem Room came along, Guild Wars 2 Wingman, and so on and so on. But for the most part, benchmarks are only one piece of the puzzle. So class, let's review. If your DPS is 50k in a vacuum, the most ideal situation, do you think your DPS will be higher or lower in a less ideal situation?
Obviously lower. Obviously lower. But the problem is how much lower as well. There is the whole thing about expectation and reality. If I sim in World of Warcraft and I go and fight a boss, my DPS is not much lower, okay? It's like, it's about what you expect. Guild Wars 2, though, it can be like 25 to 50% lower than what you expect from your own bench, not from the benchmark itself, from what you are able to perform on the golem, right? So let's say the benchmark is 100,000, you manage to perform 80,000, you end up doing 40,000 or lower. That is a bit too low of a, like your expectation is a bit higher than that, and that is very disappointing.
If you picked lower, congratulations, you are correct. If you picked higher, I have some bad news for you. In any case, our friend Framinthor mixes many other nuances of encounters and with his hatred of benchmarks. First and foremost
I don't hate benchmarks, okay? Like I mentioned in that video, I was already pissed off from a different thing, okay? Because I made the video in a lot more calm manner. I was really pissed off that the microphone wasn't recording anything. And I spent an hour that I was supposed to be sleeping in. And then I had to do that all over again. And trust me, I cut a lot of corners in that rant. Okay. A lot of corners in that rant. That's why, like, also, like, the whole benchmark is bullshit is like literally like the first minute, and not me going over the depth of it for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes and performing a benchmark of a virtuoso. Practically, I think it was like 80 to 90% of the benchmark in Snowcrows. I performed it, and then I went to show how unrealistic even the rotation is in any situation. Okay, like, well, not any. I took like the most golem-like mob in the open world that I know of, and it's not even fucking close. Okay, and again, because it's made for raid, whatever. Okay, well, I can't just perform a raid encounter. Okay, like out of like in that like out of the blue.
The ranged versus melee argument. This argument is a tale as old as time itself.
I didn't know that.
Ad nauseum within the community. As a general rule.
By the way, this melee versus ranged discussion. Sorry, I'm pausing like a lot, but that's how I do reacts. Okay, I have a point. I'm gonna talk about it. The melee versus range. Now, I don't know about a lot of Guild Wars 2 discussions. I'm not really part of the community or anything like that. I play the game, I watch some videos sometimes, but I'm not like in any of these, you know, I don't watch these like debates about like range and melee or whatever. I can tell you for a fact this is probably a very hot topic. Sorry. Okay, let me start over. This is a topic in pretty much any MMORPG. Some people say melee should be able to do like 10 to 15%, even to 20% more DPS than range, because range can almost always perform their DPS, while melee has to like move and avoid certain things, and they're losing DPS over it. Some say you can't do that because then it affects PvP, so people say like I just like adjust PvP scaling, but then it's like, well, it's also not fair in PvP because you have a range character that can nuke, so why can't a melee character nuke? Like, there's so much nuance that goes into it. Either way, yes, I don't think you will ever be able to balance melee and range. And honestly, in Guild Wars 2, it is the most balanced, only because you have to stack pretty much in all occasions. So it's like, I didn't even think this would be much of an issue in Guild Wars 2, because you're stacking so much. Like, you have to stand pretty close to your group, like literally like in like a little ball, because you want to get your quickness unlock and your might and your fury and all the boons. You want to get your boons, right? So you have to stand pretty close. All right. What I thought people would do is separate melee and ranged, and then you would have the alacrity and quickness, one of them in the range and one of them in the melee. That's like when I just started playing. That's not what people do. People just stack everything together, which is fine. Like, it's not a complaint. I'm just something to note, right? So that's why I didn't think the melee versus range debate is actually that much of a thing in Guild Wars 2, because like, why would you? Like, you're kind of stacking all the time. So, but I can see it still being a problem, because like you have forced, like, you have to move sometimes. So, but you can still DPS. If you're melee and you have to move, you can DPS. So, yeah, I get it.
Melee dependent are going to be less effective on encounters than builds that are primarily ranged. This is true for both power and Condi DPS builds, believe it or not, but it is also something that is considered by the community. If we take a trip over to snowcrows.com, many of their builds will be tagged with a lax range damage tag as a con of a particular build. Why is this? Because if a boss is teleporting all around,
see, the thing is, like, again, and like, people are laughing, oh, this guy doesn't even read. But most people don't read this. Most people are like, the reason YouTube guides are so popular is because people don't want to read a guide. They just want to, okay, berserkers, I'll put berserker. Dragon, I'll put dragon. Hammer, I put hammer. Sigil, okay, I got it. Right? They don't want to, like, they don't care about most of what's written here. Except for like, this power 2800, my power 2790. What did I do wrong? And then they go over the build again. Okay? Like, let's be real, most players are not reading. I'm not blaming Snowcrows for it, but that's just the reality of the case, okay? This is not something Snowcrow can really fix, okay? Other than attaching a video describing the page, which is, oh my god, this is so funny. This is like so like out of left field, not relevant. Did you know that there are successful YouTube pages that literally just post pictures as a video of like a newspaper, and they just read out the titles, right? And then it's like, if the title was interesting to you, you can pause this video and read the thing. Right? So it's like, literally the video is just the guy reading the title to you, and if the title sounds interesting, you will pause the video to read the thing. That's like, this is a thing. Okay, it's like, yeah, this is like, what, you think MMORPG players read everything that's written, bro? They don't read shit. And I don't even know if they go into the raid builds or just click benchmarks and, like, you know, they might go to the raid thing, sure. But the raid thing doesn't really have the benchmark listed, as far as I can tell, right? There's no benchmark here. So how can they choose? So they just click over to benchmark, see the highest number, copy paste it, and then realize that's like, well, this said 66 kDPS. I test it, I managed to get 50 kDPS. I go and play with it, I'm doing 20 kDPS. What the fuck is going on? Which, by the way, if you're doing 20 DPS, you're good for most content. Like, you're fine, but it is disappointing.
Of a particular build. Yeah. Why is this? Because if a boss is teleporting all around, or if a boss is dropping pools of crap on the ground that keeps you from getting near him, well, your DPS drops to 0. Meanwhile, if you are ranged, your DPS can be more consistent. This is made obvious by the condition Virtuoso superiority as a Condi DPS example. Yeah. And for those of you who remember the power rifle mechanist of the End of Dragons era, we see that builds that have ranged DPS potential alongside an easy to follow rotation tend to be the ones that the community adopt.
The
Before I
meta, yeah.
sidetrack too much, I want to say that the biggest complaint my man Framenthor has is that benchmark numbers are unrealistic, not only in structured group play where bosses have mechanics, but also as a solo player, which to anyone who knows anything, it should be obvious. There are a few other criticisms, and I think that they are misguided. You should see that he is focusing on the messengers, like the content creators here, be it myself, Streama Gaming, or anyone else who makes build guides or uses benchmarks to highlight a particular build. But that frustration is misguided. His actual frustration lies with none other than, you guessed it, ArenaNet. All roads lead to...
Yes, you are not incorrect, but I don't think there's much ArenaNet can do about this. That, like, even though because this is how they build the game, okay? Like, the only thing ArenaNet can essentially do is add mechanics to the golem. Like, realistically, that's probably like the only thing they can do, okay? But it's still, you want the content creators who are making this build at least talk about the weaknesses. I'm not even saying like go completely out of your way, make like a tier list out of it on the same video or anything like that. None of that. Just a pros and cons in your guide, what this is good for, what this is bad for. That, like, if that happened as like pretty much a standard when you make a guide, I would not even be able to talk about the subject. Straight up. Because it would be... It's not that it would be obvious, it would be like as if like... Well, I mean, it would be obvious. But it would be literally just saying that it's like, we are all aware of this problem, so this is why we are showing... Like, showcasing this and telling you what this build cannot do. Or, like, very weak at.
ArenaNet. It is their game, and if something is convoluted or poorly explained or overly complicated, guess whose fault it is? That's right. Say it with me. It's their fault. You see, because Framenthor is actually right about a lot of this stuff. He doesn't know how to communicate it effectively, but he is right. Benchmarks don't mean a whole lot on their own. Yes, you need an ideal environment and encounter, which often sometimes doesn't exist. Condition versus power damage, ramp up times, burst windows, they are all important considerations depending on the encounter if you are looking at a high damage final number or a high DPS output. Most players who are reasonably experienced understand that, but any player that is actually new to the game, which are the bulk of players that search out build guides or encounter guides, this information...
Exactly! They are, like, new players do not know this. They do not know the intricate of combat, okay? They might have an idea, they might have some MMORPG experience, but even if you come from, and again, if you have an certain expectations, it means you probably are aware of benchmarks from a different game that you came, if you're new to Guild Wars 2. If you play WoW, you're doing sims, okay? You go to Raidbot, you do a sim on a boss, you see what the numbers are, you test your numbers, you go to a training dummy, you see your numbers are pretty similar. They will always be probably slightly lower than the sim, because the sim runs like, I don't know, 5 to 50 encounters in like 5 minutes to see what your damage would be and gives you like the best number. I don't remember the exact way sims do it, but like they run multiple encounters over and over again and then give you like either the average or the best one. I think it should be the best one because it's a benchmark, right? So like I give the average. But then you go, you test it out, and then if you go out and you actually play the build, because of how encounters are made, you can actually get a very similar number. And honestly, in many cases, especially if it's like a single target that expands into a DPS fight, like let's say you have a main target, which is the boss, but your rotation has some AoE burst around it, and you just need to lightly AoE mobs that come in. You don't have to switch up your whole rotation to do the AoE. It's just that when you do your regular rotation, there is a little burst of AoE. Again, I'm talking about like Red Paladin. That had like some damage around him, like in a small splash at some point, right? And then your sim would actually be higher than your DPS would be higher than the sim, okay? And even if you don't have that encounter and it's pure single target, it is extremely common for you to do very close to what you are able to do on a training dummy. Just because the mechanics, the combat mechanics in WoW are substantially more simple. I'm not saying that's like avoiding shit all the time and all that stuff. Like, yes, there's a lot of things to avoid, there's things to soak, there are a lot of mechanics that happen, but none of them prevent you from doing damage. Almost none of them. Most of them, or if they are preventing you from doing damage, that means you have a target to switch to. Okay? Target invulnerable, something probably spawns. So you go and you attack that instantly. Okay? There's other stuff, like, because of like WoW being a cooldown game rather than like Guild Wars 2 being like a more consistent DPS. Whenever there is downtime, if you know when the downtimes are by knowing the boss itself, you know when to burst, when to use your cooldowns, and when you can't DPS for some reason, which almost never happens, you're not losing a whole lot of your DPS because most of your DPS happens when you're using a cooldown.
Information is not expressly stated anywhere inside of the game. Karn is a good example of this. For the most part, this boss is a golem. However, power DPS is terrible on him because he has high armor values. The open world benchmark and boon uptime numbers are also not apparent to your average Peepo player because there is no built-in DPS meter or boon table, and instead we have Arc DPS, which is an add-on, and only a fraction of players who want to be self-aware use this add-on. Outside of this, the concerns are more about the clickbaity nature of benchmark numbers. Truth be told, high DPS numbers drive clicks, like OMG, a low intensity build that can do how much, you know? High gold values drive clicks. OMG, a farm that gets 100 gold an hour. In my build video,
which, by the way, also like bullshit, like, let's be real. It's like, you see that, you think you're getting 100 gold. Now, really, it's like, if you sell everything, then you might get 100 gold, like the base case scenario. If everybody's doing everything perfect, and the like, say, take Dragonfall, it's like, oh, it's 52 gold an hour, bro. Depends if the commander is fucking farming it properly. If you have the squad that can do it fast, like, there's a lot of things that come into play when you're telling me that this is 52 gold an hour, okay? But, you know, everything is with a grain of salt. So if I'm making 40 gold instead of 52G, I'm not gonna lose my mind. If I'm doing 20k DPS when I'm expected 100k, I'm sorry, I'm gonna lose my fucking mind, okay?
I try to mention all the pros, all the cons, and what fights the build would.
I'm being hyperbolic, by the way. Just don't quote me on the numbers. I'm being specifically hyperbolic here.
Good or bad on. Additionally, I try not to have benchmark numbers as a driving factor in the video itself, even though I have been known to show Arc DPS screenshots in the thumbnail. But one thing I have always done is I always try to include live gameplay footage of me playing a build on a live encounter, give an idea of what this build looks like in practice. Sometimes that's 50% of the benchmark,
and not a snippet on like the best case scenario fight, by the way.
Sometimes it's 80%. The real interesting thing is when I saw this video, I almost didn't even watch it because most bosses are tuned so casually that the DPS check.
Yes, it doesn't really matter. And I said in the video, you can do 25 to 30k DPS on your build. Like, you can do all content pretty much, okay?
Is usually the least of the party's worries, and more so, handling the mechanics is more important than making sure that your numbers are high enough. And to say that these numbers cannot be achieved in actual fights is also not true, because Hellmasker regularly parses super high on Wingman. So even if it takes you a little bit of practice, you can get pretty close to the benchmark if you have.
I covered this in a different video, and it's like, it is extremely rare, and it's very specific builds, and it's like mostly not the case. Like, yeah, if you go into like a fight that is supposed to be a benchmark fight, that's one thing. These fights are extremely non-existent. Okay, it's like 5 fights, technically 4, but I included one more that is technically working, right? It's because it increases your damage when you hit it, like the amalgamated construct or whatever it's called in Wings 6, right? The first boss in the Mystic Toilet. Okay, so like that one technically doesn't count, but fuck it, I included him. But like you have, including him, 5 total bosses across 8 wings, where you can actually do a number that is similar to the benchmark. Right. On most builds, obviously there will be discrepancies, especially when it comes to Condi. On most builds, those 5 fights are like you can only do the benchmark on them. On the other ones, very, very like you don't see anywhere near benchmarks. Okay, and if you have Wingman, if you go to Wingman, these are like the best parses basically that exist right now. And on the best parses, they're doing like 50 to 80% of the top benchmark. And these people who are parsing so high probably can do 95% to 100% of the benchmark. So my point stands.
Man. So even if it takes you a little bit of practice, you can get pretty close to the benchmark if you have the right team behind you in live encounters. Do you need to get to that high level before you clear bosses or before you get the kill on some encounters? Absolutely not. But you can do it. And I don't really know how to conclude this video, but I find it funny that something so obvious can rile so many people up. But hey,
right? That's it's amazing. It's fucking hilarious. But yeah.
So with the end of the benchmark saga, I will leave you with a question for the comments section that has been bothering me, because now that Visions of Eternity Mirror's farm got nerfed, we are entering kind of a 6-month content drought, at least on the VOE side. We do get our rating stuff here in a couple of months. But my question is, did Visions of Eternity flop in your opinion? Do you feel like it was a flop?
For me personally, yes. For what the community thinks, I don't think so. I think the maps are pretty lively. I think people are enjoying themselves. I think people love the new elite specializations. For me personally, there is practically nothing I find great about Visions of Eternity. I hate the maps, both of them, especially the first one, but I hate them both. The new skimmer, okay, cool. I don't even care about leveling up the mastery all the way. Kind of like I didn't care about leveling my what do you call him, Sandwolf, oh my god, Jackal. I didn't care about getting the last mastery on the Jackal, aside from just like doing the mastery. But like it took me like a year to bother getting the masteries, right? Like for the Jackal's like last mastery point. I just didn't care. That's how I feel about pretty much everything in Visions of Eternity. It's like, I'll get it for the sake of getting it to increase my mastery rank. But honestly, none of them matter. You're not going to use your skimmer practically anywhere else, right? Like the map forces you to use your skimmer a lot, but like outside of that map, why would I use my skimmer? When I have Beetle, when I have like Sky Skill, it's like, whatever. Like I don't care about the skimmer, okay? So, and having the masters for the skimmer, they don't really change anything for me outside of those maps, so that's a waste. The other masteries of like the survivability mastery, again, this applies only to Visions of Eternity, so I don't care. And then the other one, which is like also like magic mirrors and stuff, again, and like more rewards. Actually, no, the first one's I think is more rewards, but like magic mirror stuff, again, only applies to Vision of Eternity. I don't care. So there's absolutely nothing aside from getting like the Astral Vault rewards. There's pretty much nothing in Visions of Eternity that I find interesting. The story is fine, I guess. I made my video about the story already, regarding the whole like delaying the story with like stupid, oh, you need this mastery to continue. That's stupid. I hate when they do that. It's like, oh, because we want you to explore this area. Man, if I want to explore, I'll explore. I did the story. I explored. I don't remember anything of the area. Why? Because I did it for the sake of doing it, not because I was actually interested in exploring. People who are interested in exploring explored regardless of the story. They just went and explored. Me, who doesn't care about it, I just don't care about it. Like, I already forgot it. Okay? Shit, I thought the exit from the first map was in the southwest corner. It turned out it was the northwest corner. And I was like wrecking my head around with an alt trying to figure out where the freaking exit was. And it was completely the other way. That's how much I cared about exploring. Like, just really didn't give a shit. Okay? Content-wise, there's like... it's nothing really to do. The new metas are okay. They're not great. Like, no chase items. The new legendaries are way too expensive. Like, not ideal to craft. They don't look that great compared to stuff on the shop. So, like, why would I ever want to craft these ones? Unless, like, again, if you're in love with the appearance, God bless you. Go for it, okay? You spend your 4,000 gold of resources. Good luck. Have fun. I don't... those appearances are not that great overall. I think they're okay. I don't think anything is anywhere remotely close to how legendary Eternity, Twilight, Sunrise, and Astrologia, or whatever, Astronomia, whatever you call the axe from Gen 2. I don't think anything is as close to feeling and looking legendary as those ones. Realistically, I don't think even the Aurene ones look legendary. Okay, they don't look bad, don't get me wrong, but like, I don't get a legendary feel out of them. I don't know, more effects, more something, right? When you see a Twilight, you're like, damn. Even though I've seen it 100 times, it still looks good. When I see an Aurene weapon, I'm like, yeah, that's cool. That's fine. I don't even bat an eye. Right, when I see a Gen 2, I'm like, eh, that's cool, that's fine. Right, most of the Gen 2s, right? So, yeah, and like these new ones, honestly, I probably passed by people who already had them and I didn't even notice. It's just not very interesting. So, like, what is there to chase in Visions of Eternity? Nothing. Give me more epic fights like Suwan. I would enjoy that. I love Suwan. Suwan is like the best fight in this game, the best meta in this game. It's not even close. Give us more of that. Remake some of Core Tier. Honestly, I already made a video about that. That's gonna talk about it. But like, there's more potential in remaking the old world than there is about giving us a brand new, what's it called? A brand new expansion about a story that honestly, dude, does anyone even care about the Inquest? I know it's not really about the Inquest, it's about like the history of like the Jinns or whatever, like, you know, or whatever they're called, right? The enemies of the Mursat. Just right. So for me personally, it is a flop. But yeah, you let me know. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe like I'm not seeing something about VOE. I just find that those like nothing is very great about that expansion. And that's that. Big thank you to Silhouette Gaming for name dropping me. Some people will take offense to being name dropped, but not me. I appreciate it. Anyways, that's it for this video. See you in the next one. Bye.